I am Phantom Enchantress. And yes, that's not just a pretty name or a gimmick that I'm using. Oh no, it's more than that. In fact, I'd like to say that I am what you would call a spirit worker. Now, as you know, there's a lot of people that claim that they have psychic abilities. Some of them may, but I can tell you the ones that are making big money, it's probably not true. However, I don't claim that I have psychic abilities. I don't claim that I am 100% correct about everything. No, I don't. Do I have everything figured out? No. Do I know everything about you? No, goodness, no, I don't. But I know things that I can't understand, and I see things I can't really explain, and I don't advertise, and I don't ask for money, because I'm a generally giving person, and I would like, if possible, I would like to help people. And when it comes to the spiritual realm, there's a lot of things that are quite controversial. And it seems to be wrapped up in a lot of religious associations. And I'm going to take a step back from religious associations, shall we? Your beliefs are sacred. Just like your social life, just like your emotional vulnerability, just like everything, okay? It's sacred to you. Your opinion is sacred, and not everybody needs to know. You know, your true beliefs, your who you are inside, the emotions that you bury deep within you. There's a time and a place for it. There's a time for you to come forward. There's a time and a place for everything, as it says in Ecclesiastics. There is a time and a place for you to take up space, to speak your emotions, to sing it loud and say it proud. And then there are times where we need to be silent. And we need to really listen. Because if we don't listen to other people's stories, we're not going to know any other stories except the ones that we've heard or our own. We need to be able to evolve and to grow emotionally, spiritually, and mentally. There may not seem to be much of a need for that. But I can tell you, it may determine your future in a way. Kind of like that lighting. I rather like it, so I'm gonna open up the curtain just a bit. But besides that, I am going to be debunking, or debunkering, as I like to say, which isn't a word, I know, some of the very harmful paranormal misconceptions. One of them being when it comes to demons, when it comes to spirits in general. Now, I understand there's a lot of fear when it comes to the paranormal or the spiritual realm. It was something that I feared myself, but it is always something that has drawn me to spirits. There's always something that has drawn my fascination for years, since I was 9 years old. I dreamt of being a paranormal investigator. I dreamt of being able to, interact with these spirits and be a detective, so to speak, because I loved mysteries, and I was getting to the point where of every show that I watched, I was solving the mysteries. And I'm not completely an observant person, but I can tell you that if you sat there and examined a scene, any sort of scene, a crime scene, or any sort of mystery, you're going to find that you can train your brain to be more observant, and it's possible to be more observant of these things. straighten this necklace up. It is possible to be more open and understanding as well, and what we forget is that we are the ones with the power here. We are very powerful and very complex beings, and we have the ability to adapt, to change, to survive. We have survived as long as we have, and it's amazing, yes, but we also forget the really fearful things. And I'm gonna say this, you know, we get worried and concerned, disturbed, and fearful of spiders, dogs, clowns, Ouija boards. We get so scared of these things, and then when we actually stop and reflect upon why we are acting or reacting this way, I think it comes to be that really, if we're going to fear anything, it should be humanity itself. Humanity as a whole has done a great deal of things, but both good and bad. But humanity destroys the planet. It abuses children, it abuses animals, it destroys everything they touch. Now, I'm not saying that you should fear yourself or fear your fellow man or the people around you, but understand that the people that can cause the most damage in this world aren't spirits, aren't demons, aren't dogs and spiders and scorpions and bats and clowns. In actuality, the real people that hurt you are other people. Yes. People, we hurt one another, we kill one another, and we destroy each other's homes, we set fire to people's cultures, and people that are different than us, we abuse, we shun. Now, some of these practices we don't, we haven't brought out, but there are some people that have a very archaic and medieval way of thinking. They're very primitive in the way that they think, and they think that, only a few should, enjoy life as we know it. And I can tell you that I think everybody deserves to have a chance to live, to enjoy life, and to have the sunshine on their face, to feel the water under your toes, and do that. And I understand there are some people that are not capable of that, and that's very sad to me, because I think life is precious, and I think that everyone, regardless of how you got here, you were meant to be here. You are meant to exist. And your light is unlike any light that is in this universe. There may be many of you, many of these lights, but I can tell you, when one goes dim and dies, it is a sad day. Because sometimes people are holding out for that one star that's out there in the distance, and we look and we see it, and we say, as long as we see this star, I can exist. And that is why we mourn the death of a loved one. We mourn them because they were a part of us. Whether you've met this person or you've just seen them on the television, like James Earl Jones. James Earl Jones was my childhood. Have I ever met him? No. Did I ever talk to him? No. Did I ever call him up and say, hi, how you doing? Did I ever go to one of his shows? No, I was probably not born at that time, but I can tell you that he was a beautiful individual, and I have enjoyed listening to him as Darth Vader, I have enjoyed him as Mufasa, and I have enjoyed him in fairy tale theater, where he played the genie with Shelley Duvall. If you have not seen that, that's on YouTube, that's here on YouTube. There's several playlists of that. And Shelley Duvall passed away not too long ago, and I lit some incense for her in memory of her, because she was a precious light that I think, went out a little too soon. And there are some people whose lights I have not adjusted to. It's almost like when someone hands you something, like something very beautiful, somebody gives you a diamond and says, here you go, and then they say, oh. And just taking into consideration, if somebody took that away from you and said, you cannot have that diamond, I'm taking it back, you're just going to look at your hand and just go, why isn't it there anymore? You miss it. Maybe a diamond isn't very practical, maybe it's not useful for everyday activities, but it is precious, and people are precious. We are far more precious than stones. We are far more precious than that. And to lose anyone, whether we've known them or not, whether it's a random person, we may not mourn those that we don't know, that we've heard have died, but when it comes to people that have been reoccurring faces or voices in our childhood, I think that's very much, we create connections with these people and attachments. And there's nothing wrong with making attachments and connections with people. Even people we don't know. The only danger is making connections and attachments to people that we encounter every day that do not give back our affection. And I've met many people like that. I've met people who I have encountered that didn't, I checked in with them. I was there. I was a constant guiding star for them. But, eventually they left. And, I didn't feel like they were there with me. I didn't feel like they were rooting for me. I didn't feel like I didn't need a cheerleading squad. But I would really like, when I give 2,000%, to get something a little bit more than 5%. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I don't half-ass anything. I don't go into anything and say, okay, I'm just gonna do this way. And I do things wholeheartedly. I dive into things. I delve into them. I dig deep. I will go above and beyond. And when people don't go above and beyond, it's disheartening, and it's very damaging to my psyche, I suppose. But it also it makes me question myself when someone doesn't give me that compassion that I've given them back. And with spirits, it's quite different. They actually do give back the things that you give them, and sometimes even more, because they are emotionally intelligent, they are emotionally intense, they make emotional connections, they have trauma, they have desires, needs, wants, and they also deserve to take up space. Now, unless they are damaging property or damaging you or harming you in some way, or your children, your pets, your family, then yes, maybe they don't deserve to take up space. But I'm going to tell you this. When it comes to paranormal, when it comes to spirits, from what I've experienced, and it may not be your experience, so take this with a grain of salt, is that a little bit of kindness, a little bit of compassion, just a little bit of understanding, and a little bit of patience can go a long way. Because you might find that a lot of times spirits do things purposefully. They don't always do things because chaos reigns, or I like to see people suffer. No, sometimes it has to do with the fact that they are not being seen, they are not being heard, they are not being understood, nobody's worrying about their needs, their wants, their desires, no one's considering their feelings. And that's a very odd thing for a lot of people, because they don't consider that. They think this is a foreign entity, this is something they don't understand, and they want it eradicated. And it is natural for us as humans to fear what we do not understand. or who we do not understand. We will shun it, we will avoid it, but in the long run, it takes courage to look at all your fears and greet them each as a friend, because your fears are your own, and it is natural to have fear. Fear protects us sometimes, but it can also overrun our life and can get to the point, it can overrun our logic and overtake us and make it to the point where we are not living our lives, we are not experiencing life to the fullest. I have lived like this, and it is not fun. It was not a good part of my life either. Was I trained to fear things? Yes. I was heavily forced into and brainwashed and taken in from my friends to my family of fearing things, people, and whatever else was out there, and fearing it, and with the most severe. And this isn't just like fearing, this is like, I'm not going to associate it with you because you do this, or you believe this, or you're with this person, or this is going on. And I never thought about what was their story, what was the story behind that, what was the history, what was really the truth of what was going on. And when you are so consumed by fear, you cannot see the truth, you cannot see reason, you cannot see what's really going on. And by all means, take a step back. If something is really scaring you, take a step back. Don't put yourself into a situation that's dangerous, obviously, if you feel that there's a reason for your fear, but I challenge you to question your fear. Why are you afraid? What is it? Because a lot of entities will grow. There are many entities. I don't know how many, but I'm going to say a few. Let's not go with many. Let's go with few. Let's be safe here. So there are a few spirits that will grow in intensity the more that you avoid them, and the more that you fear them, and the more that you, shut them away or do that kind of thing. Now, I'm going to say, not everything is a horror movie, okay? Horror movies are not the norm. Ed and Lorraine Warren, that whole thing about Annabelle, that was not the norm. That was a very rare and extreme case. And there are a few dolls out there that are so haunted that they do not work well with others. That is not the case with every vessel. I can tell you a majority of people, if you know where to look, are having positive experiences with their haunted vessels. They're having positive experiences with their haunted houses, and they've actually, some of them have learned how to coexist and live in harmony with these spirits. Let me tell you something. If any of you know who Joan Rivers is, Joan Rivers was a stand-up comedian, well known for her very nip and tuck look. She had this blonde hair, loud mouth. She was outrageous. She would make fun of people's fashion. She kind of was the pioneer for that kind of, oh my goodness, did you see what she was wearing? She was that kind of person. She had an apartment, and the apartment was haunted. Now, she didn't know what quite to do. So, she was having, some real problems, and it seemed to be triggered by one thing, and there was the apartment had been owned by a woman who was believed to have died in that apartment. And, she was an older woman. She had died in, I don't know how old she had been when she died, but whenever, Joan Rivers would try to take this particular photo of that woman, the entity would get very violent and would throw fits and that kind of thing. And she was saying that this was getting too much. Finally, she hired a voodoo priestess. And if you don't know about voodoo has nothing to do with demon worship, actually. That's actually a lie. You see, during this is actually Googleable information. I'm not just making this up. But actually, there was a man that potentially wanted people to go back to ancestral communication, ancestral worship, and so it's not demonic. A lot of the zombie stuff and the demon stuff was started by potential slave owners and was started by the people that were against it. So, and these people that were against it did not know much about it. They were, so kind of the story is this man's parents, they were Catholic, and they were very, very staunch Catholic, and they did not want to have to stray from that way of life, the Catholicism. So they demonized voodooism, and it is still to this day is very much shrouded in mystery. But voodoo is not demonic. If you have read any articles or seen any documentaries that were not done now or done in the 80s, those are total farces. Voodoo priestess deal with they don't stab dolls. It's not like that. That's Hollywood. That is yet again demonizing that practice. And from what I've seen, they are literally interested. They're kind of like shamans or witch doctors. They are spiritual advisors, spiritual counselors. They communicate with spirits, and they communicate. There's a head spirit, but they can never communicate with the head spirit. They have to communicate with the other spirits, and so that it's kind of like if you worshipped God and God was untouchable, and you had to go to you had to speak to the angels, kind of like that. But that's kind of what voodoo is. It's literally just about medicine and that kind of thing. Of course, it could be different. I could be wrong. I don't know everything about voodoo, but I do not believe it to be evil. I believe it to just be another spiritual path. I'm not into voodoo. It is not something. I learned a little bit about it, and it seemed a little too complex for me. So I was like, I think I'll hold back from that. And it has nothing to do with the fact that I disagree with that, but the way I see it is voodoo priestesses are just people that interact with spirits and will give people medicine. They are medicine women as well, and I've seen them do more good than harm. So I've never heard of anybody saying a voodoo priestess attacked me or something like that. So I would recommend getting your information from people that actually practice it, or actually people that view it in a positive way, because the negative ones are going to tell you lies. They're going to tell you things that are just not true. They're just like these Hollywood conceptions of what they think it is, and how we invoke we get the demons to come inside of us and put our it's kind of ridiculous. But going back to Joan Rivers, so this voodoo priestess came in and was able to communicate with the spirit, and she did like a ritual and that kind of thing, and communicated, and eventually they got down to the bottom of it, that it was literally, all the spirit what it wanted was respect, and to live there peaceably. And so Joan Rivers eventually learned how to coexist and harmoniously live with the spirit of this old woman. And I think that's a very beautiful story, because it really shows that when, that's kind of the norm at least for me, is spirits are reasonable. They are, if you give them respect. Dangerous about the spirit realm is when you get a hold of a unreasonable spirit, and an unreasonable spirit means that they don't care about your boundaries, they don't care about logic, they don't care about your story, they don't care about anything. They care about either their own agenda or the agenda that's been given to them. And when it comes to any spirit, even if it's a good spirit, if it's in an unreasonable state, that's not good. And so debunking, what I'm going to be debunking is literally when I have seen this, is there was actual footage of this, and I do believe that this was like an actual thing, because this woman was terrified. She was very terrified, and the one thing that she said was, the daughter was getting some very weird things, like the daughter was being pulled under the bed, and it was actually shown on I think like the nanny cam, or the security system that was in her room, which, very smart of her. And so she, eventually they got to the point where they did not want to spend any time in that room, and I can understand that, but this entity, was being rather aggressive. It wasn't really harming her. It did pull her under the bed, but it was very unusual because there wasn't a lot of room down there for any entity to actually go down there. But she went down there. She went down under the bed, and she saw a doll in the very back, and it twisted its head. And I can understand that can be unsettling, but she ran like a bat out of hell. She just got out of there. She went, "Oh, I'm gonna go," and so she did. And it was, the first thing that came to my mind was, I understand why she was terrified, but she eventually, she had this vlog of how she wasn't going to enter that room. And I'm gonna say, this could be one of those things. This could be a very unreasonable spirit, but there could also be a reason for that spirit to be unreasonable. Just for a moment, I'm gonna imagine this. Okay, if you did not have a way to communicate verbally your needs and your wants, and nobody bothered to figure out what you needed or what you wanted, you would start to feel kind of frustrated. That frustration would lead into anger, and that anger would eventually turn into an explosion. I don't know if you've seen nonverbal autistic individuals, very intelligent and amazing people, and it just was astounding, and they were like, smacking themselves and doing this and doing that because they have all this information in their head and they cannot express it, and it is frustrating and it is angering, and the only thing that you can do is through emotional explosions. And that's sometimes what spirits will do. They can be very benevolent, they can be very kind, they can be giving, but if you get a benevolent spirit and you treat them as if they were malevolent, it can eventually get them to lash out and be violent and aggressive. And you're thinking, well, if they're good, why are they doing? I don't know. We as good people, okay, I know for a fact there are a lot of people that are good people, okay? I know people that are good inside, but they do things that are hurtful to others. I've known people that I've loved that have hurt me, and I always forgave them because I knew that wasn't their intended result. I knew that wasn't what they meant to say. Now, I'm going to say, yeah, I can forgive a person, but when it consistently happens over and over again, and they say, oh, I'm going to change, this is going to happen, blah, 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 eventually it gets tiresome. And if you don't have a way of escaping this person that keeps disrespecting you, you feel trapped and you feel anxious and frustrated, and then eventually you blow up. I have blown up, okay? I not literally, but I have had meltdowns, I've had breakdowns, I've had anxiety attacks, and I can tell you it was because I was not able to express what I needed. I was not able to express my needs and my wants, and I can tell you not a lot of people were figuring out, were actually trying to get to the core of the problem. They weren't worrying about, they were saying, well, you've got food, you've got clothes, you've got all of this, but what else could you need? When really you need engagement, you need someone to you need someone. You need engagement. You need You know, you need someone to potentially connect with you. And, you know, even if you don't go anywhere for the rest of your life and you become a hermit, it's important to socialize and you know, in, you know, let's say you have a roommate or some family. I mean, literally today, you know, everybody's living with their family because it's far too expensive to be you know, living on your own. I mean, it used to be, you know, where we urged our, you know, parents would urge their children to go out and live on their own, and they would kick them out on the curb. They'd say, "Go, fly and be free." But now it seems to be, uh, you know, we're probably going to be better if our incomes are together, and it's probably going to be better if, you know, and that kind of thing. So now it's not so much of a stigma when a child lives with their parents or that kind of thing. It used to be made fun of, and now it's just, that's not, you know, PC. It's not politically correct. It's not culturally appropriate to make fun of people like that, because there's some people that cannot mentally face the outside world. It's a very scary place for some people, and so it's very sweet that you rely on your parents, but that's only if they're not toxic, of course. You know, I don't make any, but it's important that, you know, there is some engagement. It doesn't have to be a lot. I mean, and you'll find that, you know, when people tell you, "Oh, you're an introvert, darling, you don't like to get out," and then you're like, "No, I am not an introvert. I find people, I like people, and but I like, they are draining. You know, it's draining to leave the house. It's draining to connect with people, but it is worth it. And all you gotta do is just socialize a little bit of it at a time, whether it's with your friends, your family, and, you know, there's gonna be times where you can't socialize, you know, like with COVID and that kind of thing. You know, there's times where you can't socialize, but other than that, it's important that you do socialize. And I never realized the significance of socialization until I went without it. And I can tell you, they have now, this isn't a fact, but they have found that people who have been experiencing a lot of loneliness, that their health may be just as compromised as somebody that smokes 3 packs a day. Now, this is just kind of a theory. I don't think that this is a fact, but that is something to keep in mind, that loneliness does damage. It really does. It does damage. I used to think loneliness was great. Okay, I used to think, oh, I can do everything. I can play with my toys, and I can, you know, play with my Barbie dolls. You know, when I was a kid, it was great because I could be in my own little world. But when you get older, I started to realize the kind of the damage that it was doing. I mean, it was disrupting. Loneliness can affect your sleep. It can affect how you see yourself. It can affect your mental health, and eventually it can also, when you lack sleep, that can lead to you eating the wrong things, or not eating enough, or not taking care of yourself, not hydrating because you don't have the motivation because of depression and the lack of sleep, which really just goes hand in hand. I mean, when you lack of sleep and all of that. So but in all actuality, it's really nice to get out and to do things and all of that, but sometimes we need that time and that space to be alone. But with spirits, it's very much the same. They need socialization. And when, you know, I've heard of people that have literally gotten calls from a phone that wasn't operating. Like, there's this Fisher-Price phone with the eyes. It's plastic, and it doesn't have a speaker or anything like that. And this woman, she picked up the phone, and there was somebody a lost loved one. I think a grandmother or an aunt or something. I don't remember the case, but she was really disturbed by that. And by all means, that's natural to be disturbed, but think of the how much, I don't know if you've seen Ghost with Patrick Swayze and Demi Moore, but it was very difficult for ghosts to interact with their surroundings. And it's very much the same with them. It is, they are in a different dimension, and to have to interact with us, it doesn't mean that they can't do it. They can, but I think that it is difficult. It's not impossible, but it's difficult, and it's also something they have to be comfortable with. They may not want to do that the first time, but the fact that they are defying logic and defying science as we know it, defying everything that we know, like reality itself, just to communicate with you, that is somebody that really wants, that is someone that really wants to communicate with you, really wants to reach out, make a connection with you, and make an attachment with you, if you will. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. Now, of course, there's always this fear. What if it's really not my long lost loved one? What if it's a demon? What if it's, you know what? That's always been in the back of my mind. But then I started actually encountering real demons, and I'm gonna tell you a little story here. This is actually good proof. So there was a demon in my bathroom, okay? Most of the time I just thought, you know, I'm tired, or, you know what, I'm just imagining things. And sometimes at certain times of the day, you know, your imagination and your subconscious and everything just gets all jumbled up. And, you know, you don't know what you're seeing, you don't know what you're feeling, and it's natural. You're winding down, you know, at the end of the day. The sundown, as they say. But, yeah, you have that. And, I think, you know, so I just kept seeing this long finger, shadowy finger, kind of going in and out of the door and going like that. And I just kind of went, oh, I was a little bit nervous. I didn't know what to expect. I thought that was very creepy. It was very disturbing, if anything. And it was just, I did not want, you know, and it just seemed to me that every time I passed that bathroom, the intensity, the apprehension grew. And I just felt like, this is getting ridiculous. I am literally feeding my own fear. I'm feeding my own fear, and sometimes spirits will reflect back what they feel. And if they feel that you're fearful or disturbed, they'll reflect it back, either as a defense mechanism, or just the fact that maybe they're mischievous, or maybe they have a purpose for that. Maybe they are trying to be they are at natural empaths, so they may just trying to be, they may see it in their mind as like, maybe this will help me relate with them. And they may not have an actual physical form. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. So we don't really know. They may be there, and sometimes they do make an actual physical manifestation, but other than that, they don't have genders, from what I've seen and what I've experienced. They have, when spirits look at you, they feel your emotions, they feel your energy, so they don't mess with your mind, because potentially your mind is a very complex thing. They don't like to, your mind is a very complex organ, and yes, they could potentially read your mind, but for a lot of spirits to do that against your own will would be very difficult, because I don't know if if any of you have experienced mental illness, or have experienced anxiety, or that kind of thing, or, you know, hearing things in your head. It would be very, very difficult for them to, and it's almost too much work. It's more work than it's worth, especially when that potential spirit is probably only going to last a little bit. And so they can't really potentially take over your mind without certain preparations. And one would be, especially if it is against your will, if they are in your mind against your will, they are fighting against your will. They are fighting your mind. They are fighting you. Now, you, on the other hand, can allow them to read your mind if you wanted to, but I would recommend doing that in cooperation and obviously trusting that spirit before you allow them to do that. I don't usually allow spirits to read my mind because my mind is sacred, and they know that, so they don't. But there are spirits that will break these rules. But the best thing is, when you are encountering a spirit, is that you should, let them know that there are boundaries and there are certain things that you will not do. I make that very clear, especially, and I'm going to say this, sincerity is valued within the spirit realm. The reason being is, if you come to a spirit and you get all puffed up and you're just like, I'm confident. Confidence is in me. I'm confident in myself. But inside you're like that. They're not going to look at your appearance, because they see you they see your skeleton, they see your organs, they see everything. And the only thing they don't see is your mind, because it's kind of weird. It's a very complex kind of thing. So, they are going to see your attitude. They're going to feel your attitude. They're going to see your energy, feel your energy. They're going to see your emotions, feel your emotions. They're going to know that your overall. Now, if you come into a room and you have confidence in yourself and you actually mean it, they know that intention. And what is intention? Intention is your mind focusing on one goal and hoping to achieve it, and it's not just your mind that's involved, but your energy is involved. Now, unless you are some sort of emotional guru and you can just meditate and like a Buddhist monk kind of thing, and you can just meditate and immediately get your emotions, which I wish I could learn how to do, very much so. I'd recommend not being dishonest to spirits, because spirits will know that if you are bullshitting them. They know bullshit. They can smell it a mile off. And if you do something, we are very contradictory. We'll say one thing and we'll do another. But intention is important, because sometimes we will do things and not intend to do them. So, for instance, I could have little Grace here and I could drop her. And because I tripped. I did not intend to trip. I did not intend to drop her. And let's say that she went flying. She went, oh, and I'm like, I'm so sorry. And then, of course, the first thing that she would say is saying, that's fine. Usually what they'll say is, I'm fine. Because this is their vessel. It's not necessarily connected to nerves like we are. This is made out of material. This is an inanimate object. What really feels something is in here. But by all means, I believe that this vessel should be respected, because if you're wondering, this is Grace. Grace is a miniature she's a miniature Raggedy Ann. Raggedy Ann actually, this is a little history lesson for you. So Raggedy Ann actually was invented by a man by the name of Johnny Gruelle. Gruelle. And it was meant, the doll was created for a good intention. Just like the Barbie was. The Barbie was created because a woman wanted her daughter to have more options and to play with. And so Johnny Gruelle made this for his daughter at the time, who was, I suppose, was very young, and wanted her to have a little doll to play with. So when that happened, it was very interesting. And so in 1915, the first Raggedy Ann and Raggedy Andy was distributed and invented, and so it was, I don't know if it was distributed or invented, but let's just go with invention. And this was made to the public in 1915. Then in 1918, one of the first books was published, and there was quite a few books. I remember reading them, and I remember my grandmother reading them, and I remember when I had a Raggedy Ann. And so then later in 1977, a movie, a full feature-length animated movie, was made with Didi Khan, who is the original Frenchie in Greece. Very lovely woman. Love her, love her. She still looks amazing. Just adorable. I adore her. And so Didi Khan, it was a very charming little movie. It was very creepy. It disturbed me on so many levels. I loved it. I think I remember watching it. Recently I watched it, and I was, yes, it was uncomfortable for me. But, that's always a bonus with me. I was like, you can make me uncomfortable, I salute you. So that's what I do. But, and then later in 2014, it wasn't really well known that Annabelle was a real Raggedy Ann until 2014, because people started, the internet was obviously a big thing in 2014. I mean, it has been for years, but that was when things really started circulating, when The Conjuring and all of that came into being, and people started actually doing research. Now, this had been known amongst paranormal researchers and the paranormal community about Ed and Lorraine Warren and Annabelle. However, they changed it in the movie, but it was probably... what happened is it kind of gathered a new kind of fan, and it wasn't just horror fans. It was fans that perhaps maybe they had an interest in the paranormal, or just paranormal enthusiasts that came out. And but this came at a cost. The cost was Raggedy Ann at that point was seen as something very negative and seen as something demonic and evil. And Hollywood knows, every YouTuber, every social media influencer knows that negativity sells. Sex sells too, but negativity is very effective because, and this is no reflection on the YouTubers that do this. I happen to follow Nuke's Top 10 and a lot of those that will put shocking titles on there, like videos so shocking that you'll have to call your grandmother, or videos so scary that you have to change your underpants, and things like that. And I like the sense of humor that's behind it, and I can tell you it's very eye-catching, especially when you have the right thumbnail and you've got the right photo that's right there. And very well done. Very well done, Nuke. Love your content, by the way. And then there's, Slap Tam, who is also gathers paranormal stuff. People have been saying that a lot of his content, the videos that he shows are not, accurate. They're not the real deal. But he never actually says that any of it is real. He actually has that, when Slap Tam comes up, he actually says that, obviously, you can take this with a grain of salt. This may or may not be, the real deal. And a lot of those videos, yes, have not been the real deal. But that's not his fault. The fault is there's a lot of dishonest people out there. A lot of dishonest people that will do anything for a couple of views. That's the only thing I'm against. I'm against is people that are willing to pretty much scam other people. As you know, with TikTok, there was a girl that pretended that she had Tourette's, and then there's a couple of people that will put on so much, they put on makeup, and then when they take it off, they look like a toad, and it's just like, we have so much deception here. But the main thing is that when it comes to uh, when it comes to selling things is, yes, you're going to have to, sometimes we have to we have to trick the system. We have to play the Game of Thrones. We have to use the algorithms to our advantage to get views. But I'm going to say, I do not believe in lying to people just to get views. I would rather be the most unpopular person and then get views in a way that's going to deceive people. I don't come on here and say, you know what, I have this ability and you can, you know, I'll do your readings or something, and you can, you know, I'll do your readings for you, and then you know, I don't have any abilities at all, you know. So I'm not going to claim something that isn't actually happen. I might keep some things to myself. You know, there might be some things that I may not want to tell the whole world about. But that's my right. That's my right, because there are things that are personal about my personal life. And people get so shocked when I think it's just ridiculous with the internet nowadays. It's like, if you remember Bella Poach, beautiful Bella Poach, she's done Build a Bitch, and lately she's done, what was it, Crush. I think she's absolutely gorgeous. I love her, and I think, and what I have seen is she's been through a lot of trauma, like a lot of trauma. Her parents literally locked her in a room. She hated yellow, so they painted her whole entire room yellow and trapped her in there for like days. And she has risen and come out of that trauma. And you have to understand, people that have that trauma, they carry it around with them. They might put it in the back of their mind, but it is always there. You don't ever get over trauma. So it's every day. It's every day that you're dealing with that. And that's why I admire comedians. That's why I admire artists, because they take something that is very painful to them, and they create music, or they create a stand-up routine, and they laugh about it. And I think that is a very, I think that's strong, and I think that's noble, and I think that's fantastic. That's why I admire both singers and actors and stand-up comedians, because they are that resilient. They don't let it, they strive on. And but with Bella Poach, they were very critical. She had apparently been married and hadn't told anybody, and then all of a sudden she came forward and said that she had gotten a divorce and she was going through a really rough time, and this was a vulnerable time, and everybody was upset. They overreacted. They were like, why didn't you tell me? And it was just like, you know what, it is her right not to give out that information. She just wanted, she was doing that she was a TikToker. She wasn't using that to tell people about her life. She was just doing funny videos. That's all she was doing. And nobody needs to tell their story. You know, your story is sacred. Your beliefs are sacred. Your opinion is sacred. And not everybody needs to know about it. And it's okay. That's not lying. That's just not telling people your whole story. You know, some people need to actually build up a trust, because there's certain parts of our stories that are very, very sensitive. They're very traumatic, and we need to be able to be emotionally vulnerable. That's a very brave thing to have to do. So if you do have a spirit, show a little bit of emotional vulnerability. Say something. Just experiment. You know, if you have a home, or you have a vessel, or something that's haunted, just kind of sit in that place where it's the most active, where you feel that there's a lot of activity, and just trying to kind of say, hey, you know what, I don't know what you're doing now, but I'm sure that you have a story to tell, and I see you, I hear you, and I know that you're there, and if you, whenever you're ready to tell your story, I'll be here. And then maybe to get them comfortable, you know, whenever you know, when you're on a date, or when you're with friends, or that kind of thing, you may want to, you know, just act like it is like you would talk to a person. say something about yourself. Say, you know, when I was 12, this happened to me. Or when I was 4 years old, I used to whisper to the moon and talk to the trees and put my toes in the creek. You know, you could say things like that. Or get something that really ignites emotion, because they're going to feel it. They're going to feel it. They communicate through emotions. Spirits communicate through emotions and thoughts and feelings because they are energy. You know, try to figure out what they, you know, what is it they need. Because I'm going to say, as I said before, any spirit that is benevolent can be pushed beyond their limits. Just be like you can. You can be pushed to your limits. You know, you always have that woman, that woman at work, or that guy at work that you don't like, and they are always being disrespectful, condescending to you. Or there's somebody in your family that's like that. Maybe you've got somebody in your circle of friends that is like a friend of a friend, and you don't like them, and they are just constantly, whatever it is. There's only so much that you can take, and you're either going to take a step back, you're going to quit your job, stop, avoid this person entirely, or you're going, if you do not see a way out of it, and you can't lose that job, and you can't really find a way away from this person, then you're going to have an emotional explosion. And that is what spirits do. That is sometimes what they do. They will try to express themselves, and if you are not able to express yourself, your emotions are gonna get out some way, and they're going to have to do that. And a lot of the things that we experience sometimes, like anxiety, depression, I believe can be contributed to emotional stagnant emotion, meaning emotion that you did not express. So, for instance, when you say, hey, I would like to have some me time, and I would like to be alone. And when you're not given that, you may regress, and you're going to push it down, and you're going to just, like, you know, try to do that. And there's only so much time that you can hold that in. Eventually, and, you know, some people will say that if you have an anxiety attack, or you have depression, or you have something like that, that is maybe a stagnant dream or a stagnant emotion. And there's actually some psychology to that. There's some truth in that, because I can tell you, it takes energy to keep back your emotions. It takes a lot more energy than it does to suppress it. I mean, think about when you're crying. When you cry and you release that energy, you release it, and it actually does help you. But you feel drained, but you also feel like you've gotten out that, you know, that emotion. So crying is very, like, positive as far as it is mentally. Now, to cry all the time, yeah, that might not be a good thing. But kind of going back to the demon in the bathroom. So, you know, there was a demon in my bathroom, okay? I'm not gonna lie. It was scary. And I just kept avoiding her over and over and over again, because it scared me. I was just like, I don't want to deal with that. Finally, after being disturbed and scared and avoiding that entity, I finally just waved back, and I went, hi. Now, after that, that demon has not caused any issues. She has not made any, like, she's actually, you know, she doesn't do anything really, because there are certain demons, believe it or not, that all their existence, all the things that they do is just watch. They just watch. They don't interact with their environment. It's not that they can't, it's just that they either don't want to, or that's just their job. But when you see in paranormal shows where they're like, I know your name is Bradley, and I know you were born in so and so, those are things that are easily accessible. And when a spirit spends enough time with you, whether you know it or not, they're gonna find these things. They're gonna find these things. They're gonna find these things out. So it's not, and spirits communicate. So really ask. You know, I understand this. They never ask. They always ask, "How did you know that?" When really you should ask, "Who told you that?" And where did you get this information? That should be the specific question you should be asking. Because to me, it's not a marvel at all. Because angels communicate with angels, demons communicate with demons, spirits speak with other spirits. Okay, if you're in somebody that is religious, literally says in Job, where Satan actually was interacting with the angels and with God himself. So there is communication in the spirit realm. So it's very easy for them to figure out your name, your date of birth. It's very easy for them to figure that out. That's not, especially with the internet now. I don't know. They could probably, it's very easy. But these are demons that specifically, they don't really harm anyone. All they do is potentially they just kind of chill. And the majority of the demons that I have encountered are very chill and very mellow. Maybe it's because that's the kind of spirits that I attract, or kind of the spirits that I decide to, because I'm very selective about the spirits that come into my home. I bless my space all the time, and I make it very clear, the spirits that protect me, they make it so that any spirit that has ill intent cannot enter my home. And I make that very clear, that when a spirit comes into my home, especially when I bring a haunted vessel into my home, I will tell them, you have very little rules in this house, okay? You can make any kind of phenomenon, you can manipulate, interact with your environment as much as you please. Flicker the lights, double the mirrors, make things move, whatever you want to do, you do it. But you do it in your own time, okay? Because I don't, spirits are not like dogs, okay? They're more like cats. It's like, how cats are. The cats they don't give a shit. They really don't. But they leave. They'll leave for days and then they'll come back and like nothing's ever happened. And spirits are like that. They will have vessels that they will inhabit, like temporarily, that they feel comfortable with, because they choose to be there. But if they feel, they want to hang out with their spirit friends or their spirit family, they will. Very rarely have I seen where spirits, there's only like a few dolls that I've seen online that actually have like an entity within them that's trapped within them. That's the story. That stuff is like Chucky stuff. That is the stuff that you hear in a lot of what would you call it, Hollywood movies, where there is like this doll that it usually involves some sort of ritual. How Annabelle was created, that at least in the first movie, is that there was a bunch of like Satanists or something, and they trapped it in there somehow, and it was some sort of ritual. And then with Chucky and Tiffany, it was, she did this ritual. So I'm gonna say there is no complicated ritual that needs to really be done to get a spirit to be attached to you or to an object. But I can tell you that they very much would rather be attached to, would rather inhabit a empty vessel. We are not empty. We are full of things, and we are contradictory, we're unpredictable, we are extremist at times. We say one thing, do another. We're very complex, very powerful. If we feel at any time that there is a foreign entity within us, we're gonna probably fight it. And there is a way to coexist and to live with these spirits. And it's really just the trick of learning. of how. And it's going to be different from person to person. But from what I have seen, demons do not want to possess you, okay? There may be some out there that do, but I can tell you it is quite a process, because they have to make sure that you're worn down. They may have to, depending on how they want to do it, because sometimes demons, in order to possess someone, they will make sure it's a child, because children are easily manipulated. They will make sure that they want you to be naive. They may want you to be naive. And then also, they may try to trick you. You know, a demon may want, just depending on what their personality is and what their tactics are, they may use different things. They may drain them. They may, keep them from sleeping. They may try to wear them down so that they can possess them, or they may have different methods. Every demon and every spirit you're going to meet is going to be unique, and they're going to have unique strategies and very unique ways of interacting with you. And most of the time, I can tell you, it's a very specific kind of demon that does that possesses human beings. And for the most part, a majority of demons do not want to do that. It is a undesirable thing, because you're having to fight a person. You're fighting, it's a battleground for them, and it's very much, I asked a demon who had history of possession. I said, what is that like? And he says it was like faking out and mental illness. So he literally said that it was kind of like having two consciousness. It was not enjoyable. I said, do you want to do that again? He says, no. He says, no, I do not. And I think it was something that he had done out of desperation. It wasn't really something that he had probably planned to do. And often demons, because they don't have full control of that person, they will leave for a time, come back. Depending on their method and their strategy, they may try, draining, they may try those things, but for the most part, I'm going to say possession will probably may never happen to you. And really, if it does happen to you, don't let people say to you that it's your fault. It is not, okay? It is not your fault that there's evil in this world. There's not your fault that there are entities out there that are going to hurt you, and do that. That's not your fault, okay? And then there may be demons out there that will wait for that person to willingly allow them in. I wouldn't recommend that, but, to each their own. I mean, if you guys want to be possessed and drained by demons, that's fine. I just don't, another thing is there are also incubus and succubus. Incubus, don't necessarily feed off of sexual energy. They can feed off of any kind of energy. But if you think about it, demons don't really need to feed off of any energy at all. They're not dependent upon it, because they are infinitely powerful. They don't need to recharge their batteries. They don't need to plug something in. They're potentially infinitely, they're always full of energy. And the thing with that is, if one was feeding off of you, that could be really bad. But depending on the person that it was happening to, it depends. I mean, if somebody likes that kind of intimacy with a demon, that's entirely up to you, and that's entirely up to that person, and that's really none of my business. It's really none of my business. I mean, if that's what they like. I know I have seen actual, on eBay and Etsy, of actual entities that are, they're inhabited by succubus or incubus, and I'm sorry, I've had enough experience with people that suck the life out of you. I don't need a spirit to do that for me. I choose not to bring those into my home for obvious reasons, because, but the only thing that I can think of, incubus can be relatively harmless unless they are actually, I have heard where there are incubus and succubus that will scratch and bite and do that. And I suppose to each their own yet again. I guess if you like it rough or something like that, but uh, sometimes they will do that, but they won't really like bring any permanent harm. Energy is something that can always be replenished and used later on, but for some people that's not really okay for them. They don't want to be drained, they don't want to be scratched, they don't want to wake up with scratches on their arm. You know, that's not something that's enjoyable for them. So, yeah, that's never, you know, I can tell you that most of the time when I wake up with scratches on my arm, I'm like, oh no, oh, that was me. Yeah, I'm like, oh, that was me. Yeah. You know, I have a lot of allergies, and sometimes, you know, certain soaps will aggravate it, and so, you know, I'll subconsciously, you know, you do that. Sometimes you'll just, you know, you won't think about it. You'll feel an itch and you'll scratch it, and then you'll be like later going, did this get here? So that can be explained right there. And I try to, you know, see that, but I don't recommend having something that is going to drain you of energy unless you are a experienced, you're experienced with that. So if you are experienced and it's consensual and you're okay with that, then I don't see the problem. But you know, what you do is what you do. I personally wouldn't do that, but that's just me. That's just me. You know, I don't feel comfortable doing that. Have I had experiences with incubus and succubus? Yes, I have. Do I want to talk about it? No. But I have been involved. I have been involved with people that are just as toxic, and if not more. And I really do believe that there are people out there that do just they it's just their overall presence, like it's just their toxicity and whatever it is that just drains the fun out of everything. It drains your energy. It just does that, and I have experienced that with people, and you can't be around them, you can't talk to them. You know, that there's kind of toxicity out there that is just, it cannot be solved. You can't tame it, you can't address it, you cannot acknowledge it, and it's best to just be away from that. But to each their own, as I said. Who am I to judge? I mean, if it's your home, it's your home, you know. If you want, you allow whatever you want in your home, okay? Whether it's homeless people, you know, people from different countries, or demons. You know, it's and what we forget is that we underestimate ourselves a lot. We realize that there's a lot that we control. There's a lot that we can control, and there's a lot that these other spirits can't control. Controlling us is very difficult. Influencing us, yes, but controlling us as a whole is a very complex thing, and so I don't really, I do not fear possession myself. I do not fear it because I've met a lot of demons, and the demons do not want to possess me. And I know the argument is always, well, demons can lie. Honey, anybody can lie to you. Anybody can lie to you. Even an angel can lie to you. But when an angel doesn't really lie in their sense, you know, they don't see it as a lie. They see it as telling you the information when you need to hear it and when you're ready to hear it. And sometimes there's information that is just way too much for us to comprehend, too much for to handle, and sometimes they know that we're not going to believe what they're telling us. So they will tell things, and sometimes they will tell me. I've had actual angels tell me, why didn't, you know, I'll say, why didn't you tell me this? And they will respond and say, that wasn't your truth. And if we told you our truth, you wouldn't have believed it. You were not ready for that truth. We were waiting for the perfect time to tell you. And I'm like, but in their mind, you have to remember, spirits do not have the same morality. They do not have the same standards. They do not see the world as we do. Their ways are not our ways. And their morality may not be the same as ours. Their logic may not be the same as ours. So when they keep something from you or tell you one thing and it's really another, it may be just the fact that they were either not comfortable or they were trying to protect you. They don't see it as lying. They see it as actually protecting you from getting overwhelmed or from you, because there's certain procedures that they have to take. For instance, if an angel was appointed to tell you, to guide you, it may be in their that they know that if they say something a little too soon, it may put you off. You may not listen to them. I mean, imagine if they were going to tell you something that was just so, it was just going to change your entire way that you looked at life, and you just weren't having it. And that would have turned them away. That means you'll stop communicating with them. You will shun them. You could do a number of things and swear at them and do all of that. So they're trying to ensure that you will have a connection with them and that they can guide you. And also, spirits have preferences. They may not want to tell you certain things at certain times. They may want to reserve some things, but also it's respect. It's respect. Not to tell you something is respectful, because there are certain things that may offend us. Truth does not always set you free. Sometimes truth actually can be harmful. Especially when it is the whole truth. And there are certain things that spirits have told me that have blown my mind, almost to the point where had this kind of, how do I put that? I wanted to reject the information that was being given to me, like, very much so. Like, I wanted to just reject it. I wanted to just go, get this away from me. And they don't want that response, because some of them have worked hard to get that relationship with you, and to scare you away by one truth may not be something that they want to do. So they're not just looking out for you, they're looking out for themselves. They're also looking out for whoever they're getting orders from, possibly. And potentially spirits either are keeping things from you because they're not comfortable, because they want to protect you, they want to protect themselves, or they feel that you're just not ready and you're not going to comprehend what they're saying and you're not going to believe what they're going to say. And that is it sounds kind of familiar. That's kind of like us. I don't know if you've ever said something to a person that it was a lie, kind of a white lie, and it wasn't the truth, but you didn't want to hurt that person. And we're always told never to lie, but I'm going to say, if you have to lie in order to survive, or you need to lie so that you're not going to hurt someone, that is the exception right there. I believe that lying in itself is not evil unless it is destroying someone's life. If it's causing someone to believe, and also I would recommend not, lying can be a gateway sometimes. Like, it can lead to other lies and all these other things. But in actuality, if lying is not harming anyone and it's just for your survival, I don't see anything wrong with that. But when it's lying in a sense where, you put on all this makeup and then when you take it off you look like Danny DeVito, or you're or you're some sort of, or you're lying and getting everybody's money from their accounts. No, I don't think that's a good idea. But One thing that I've learned is honesty is really key when it comes to spirits. Please do not assume. I recommend please don't assume that because a demon is a demon that they're going to attack you, possess you, or take your soul, or demand the blood of virgins. Okay? That's not realistic. That's the Wicker Man stuff. That's horror movies. There is often people, I don't know if any of you have experienced, where you instinctually knew what a spirit was saying, or you were speaking in unison with them, or you suddenly, all of a sudden, knew a different language or whatever, and it wasn't intrusive, it wasn't damaging, but it's scary for some people because they don't understand their own abilities and to communicate with spirits, and so it's really scary. So some people, that's why they avoid Ouija boards and such, is because they think it's a possession. It's not. That's not possession. Okay? If you're religious, or, you know, you've been religious in the past, the Holy Spirit, you invoke the Holy Spirit. Invoking isn't possession. No. Invoking, on the other hand, is just inviting them to guide you. You're allowing them to guide you. You're allowing them to connect with you, with your heart and your soul. They can't take your soul. Nobody can take your soul. Okay? Nobody can. Okay? Your soul is your own. And your heart, you're allowing them to emotionally connect with you. This is not the same as possession. Possession is a violation of your freedom and your rights. It is everything that is taboo. It is disrespecting your boundaries. It's violating your boundaries. But invocation, on the other hand, is consensual. You accept the Holy Spirit in. You know, you do that so that you can become a better person, or do that. That is the same thing with invoking spirits. Invoking spirits means you're not allowing them to take over your mind. You're not allowing them to do that. And if it is a good spirit, they're not going to try to do that. They're not going to do that. So when you invoke, make sure that you know what you're doing, but using a Ouija board, not playing. I don't play. No. Playing is for little girls that are at slumber parties that think it's cute and scream at the lights flickering. That's what they do. I work with them. So when you use a Ouija board, you are allowing a spirit to guide your hand. They're cooperating with you. It is, and often that's why there's that fear of possession. But I can tell you, possession doesn't usually work like during the session. That doesn't usually happen. Usually what happens is the person that is doing that, they cannot differentiate because a Ouija board is multifaceted. It has many uses. The two main ones are communication, and teleportation, or a portal, meaning you're bringing that spirit in. And when children use it, they don't understand the difference between those two. And also, when you're with other people, it amplifies the negative experience. It amplifies the negative emotions. The same way that you would when you go to a concert. Like when you go to a concert, for instance, you can go to a concert, let's say, and it's if it's a good concert, you're vibing on other people's energy, and it's just, you get that contact high because, first of all, you're jamming to that music, and the other people are jamming, and you're feeling good, they're feeling good, and it's just this equal exchange that's going back and forth. And then you see that person, and that person is like Florence and the Machine or something, and there's just something magical that happens. It's that connection, that emotional connection that we make with people without even knowing them. There's this one point where Florence from Florence and the Machine just looked at this woman, and she touched her face, and she went like this, and they just it was just like this energy that just exchanged through them. And the first thing that Florence said, it was like I was looking at myself. And I've only experienced that once, and that is just magical. And it is. Music is magical because it just releases good energy, and energy that you can share with people, and it's so magical. So, but when you get people that have negative intentions, and you have what we call crowd mentality, which, yes, there's strength in numbers, but there's a lot of damage in numbers also. When you create, I mean, there's been several mobs throughout history. I'm not going to name them all, obviously. I don't want to get into controversy here, but when it comes to that, people have done horrible things because they had one thing in mind, and they don't even know what they were doing. They didn't even know how they got there sometimes, because literally it was what they did is they got swept in this emotional wave of, and when you get a lot of people together, we are meant for connection, and when we connect, it's astounding. But the also another thing is it can be very damaging, because if you connect with the wrong person and they've got a bad intention, yeah, you can get a whole group of people that have this bad intention, and they're out for blood. That's how a lot of mobs have started. But besides that, energy, when you make a connection with someone, so yeah, but also with the Ouija board is, you have to understand, you are being guided. This is an invocation. This is a guidance. That's like the Holy Spirit guiding you. It's the same kind of thing. I don't know why people demonize this, but it's probably because some demons take advantage of our ignorance. And when it comes to that, they know our energy, they know our emotions, and they sometimes, if they've watched us long enough, they know what we know. They understand how our minds work to an extent. Don't know our thoughts, but they, unless we allow them to. And most will not violate that, because it's just really tricky, because our minds are very complex, and it's just not something that they want to do. So don't worry about that. Really, to be honest, and really what's going on with that is that people don't understand that a Ouija board is it's not an intermediate, it's not a beginner tool, it's not an intermediate. It is something for somebody who is competent with working with spirits, somebody who is confident in their own abilities to communicate with them. And if you do not have that confidence yet, I recommend, please don't be meddling with that. When people say don't play with that, I would have to agree with them. Don't play with a Ouija board. This is not something that you should play with. No, don't play with spirits, but you can interact with them. You can communicate with them, and through respect and assertiveness, you can do that. But if you are not at that point in your life where you can say, I'm comfortable with emotional stimuli, the moment you touch that board, the spirits that you're getting in contact with are going to know immediately whether you are experienced. They're going to know immediately if you have done this before, and they're going to know what's going on, because you may have this confidence of like, show us a sign, but if they feel that you have any doubt, if they feel that you have any insecurities or anxieties, because they're doing a scan of you, they can see you, you've called upon them to be in that Ouija session. And another thing is being clear. Be clear about which spirit you want to contact. Okay, be clear, and make sure that connection, that channel, not portal, channel, is safe one. What I do is I will get my Ouija board, I will call upon a very trusted spirit, a spirit who is angelic, and is somebody I will say, if there is a way, maybe I'll call upon multiple spirits, and I will say, if there is a way to talk to this specific spirit, yeah, You actually have to talk to spirits in order to talk to spirits. Wow, who would have known? Well, I know now. So, yeah, so I know now. And so that's cool. And one thing that I know is, so I call upon that, I put my hand on the board, let it kind of go, you know, like that, and then eventually I get a message. Now, the first time that you're going to be using a Ouija board, I'm going to say it's going to be awkward, because the first thing you're going to want to do is kind of take control. Kind of just, you don't need to empty your mind, you don't need to meditate, but you just kind of have to be, you kind of have to go with the flow, so to speak. Kind of, you should allow yourself to have some control, by all means, because you're the one moving. You are very much moving it as well, but you're also cooperating with the spirit. And another thing is, I do not recommend getting a Ouija board in a place that's very, very active. So if there's a place that's very active and there has actual like physical manifestations, there's a lot of things moving around already, please, I would recommend not bringing it out at that time, because if they're already communicating through physical manifestations, there's really no point. Location is important, but energy is important, because a lot of people approach the Ouija board, they do not have confidence in themselves. They are scared, they are frightened, and it's terrifying to them, because they think, I'm gonna get possessed, but it is not the same as possession. This is a natural guidance. It should be coming as natural. If you are, also another thing is, if you are somebody that is really into grammar like I am, I grew up with somebody constantly correcting me in my grammar, so I am just like, I'm one of those people. It's like that TikTok trend. If somebody left a message and said, "You're next," and it said YOUR, I would put an apostrophe and an RE, and then carry about my, go about my business. I really would. And I would do that. I totally would. Maybe. But it's kind of funny to me, because I would, so sometimes you need to kind of quiet the editor, the person that wants to edit things. Don't do the mental autocorrect, okay? Another thing is, some people will try to actually they'll try to like blindfold. I tried that once. It did not work. It's like I forgot how to spell, and I was like, wait, no. I was like, wait, no. And I did this with an experiment. This was an experiment, actually. And I asked ahead of time. I said, hey, can I do this experiment with you? And this one spirit said, yeah, sure. And she was a nice spirit, she was nice. I liked her. And she literally was like, and she's like, how did this work? And I was like, it did not. So yes, there's an amount of visualization. You need to be able to see the board and see the words for it to make sense. Maybe some people will do it as kind of a fun element. And yes, playing with your Ouija board should be fun, but it is by no means a game. It is a but you have to also remember, it is a piece of wood. There's nothing remotely magical about it. In fact, it's just like anything. If you were to stare at your phone, it's not going to do anything. You have to actually interact with it. You have to actually use it. And over time, it's just like using your phone. You're gonna learn better ways to use it. Now, I'm gonna just say, personal opinion, I think phones and computers and laptops are more dangerous than anything else. I think the amount of time that people have been worried about Ouija boards, another child has been kidnapped because somebody contacted that child and say, hey, meet me here. People's all their information has been our information has been leaked out several times. Personal information regarding our emails, everything that we have in our lives, and it's gotten to the point where there is no privacy. So, how many times has a Ouija board told people your social security number? How many times has it drained your account? How many times has it made a child disappear? Never. Never. Unless somehow there's a demon that, somehow got your social security. But really, to be honest, what would a demon want with your social security? What would they want with that? Because they're a demon. That has to do with money and your credit card information. So, yeah. I'm just going to say, you want to fear something, fear the other people that you're talking to online, okay? Fear that, because I'm going to say nothing is safe. Nothing is safe. Even YouTube, even those things, anything and everything can be accessed very easily. And it's getting, we're trying to make it harder, but potentially we're getting smarter and smarter people that can just trick the system. And, when you're sitting here worrying about why, how Satan could get into your home, guess what? Kidnappers already got a hold of that child. Somebody already emptied that person's account. All in this time that you've been worrying about that. Guess what? I don't give direct access. I don't give Satan direct access to my home. And if you're thinking that, honey, I happen to know that there are people that are out there that I actually have numbers to that are far more satanic than any and demonic, than any demon, than even Satan himself. I have seen the evil that humans do. Demons tell us to do one thing, and we end up causing a scene. We end up doing that, and we say the devil made me do it, when really it was just us that did it. Okay, it's just us that did it. I think we are a lot more powerful than we give ourselves credit for, and to think that, oh, the devil made. Can you imagine? The devil's just probably sitting there going, I wasn't there. I don't think I was there. Was I? No. Was I there? It's gonna be like, yeah. So no, it's a misconception that Ouija boards give direct access, give Satan direct access. First of all, I the way that I've used it, Satan, I think of him as kind of a, kind of like Disney, kind of like Mickey Mouse. It's like he's there, but he's not there. And Disney is like taking over all of these companies, and Disney doesn't really, but Mickey Mouse doesn't really interact with people. I mean, he does, but then he doesn't. So to me, he's somebody that I don't associate with. I don't bring him into my home. There are people that do. I don't. Okay. The only way that you could give Satan direct access is if you actually used the Ouija board to do that. And the reason I'm gasping like that is like that I would never do that. I have no desire to do that. Thank you. I don't have any desire to bring evil into my home, okay? And I actually, and if you're wondering, I actually know how to use a Ouija board effectively. I can make it to the point where they don't know where I am and they can't see me. I've actually had a Ouija session where they claimed they couldn't see me, and they claimed that all they could do was hear my voice. Now, I don't think I've ever heard anybody, now that I've said that, have you tried doing that? Have you tried? No, because I have actual experience, and I've actually, I did some research. I got from people that actually had positive interactions with a Ouija board. and I strive to do it correctly. I bless the board beforehand, meaning selenite, incense. You can use Palo Santo. You can use whatever talisman. I've heard of people using pieces of corn, dried corn, because they blessed it. So if you have an object like a talisman or something that's been blessed, maybe you have, a holy vessel, which Grace sometimes, she will help. Grace is a holy vessel. She's a very angelic and heavenly entity. So when I place her on the board, it gets all the mojo off of it. So I don't believe that anything will attach itself, because I bless my boards in such a way that that negative energy is just gonna slide off of it. That's how I do that. But just in case, since objects do sometimes absorb your energy and your intentions, I make sure to thoroughly bless them, and I make sure that I watch something that's positive and listen to things that are good, that are happy, that bring positive thoughts to me, and positive feelings to me. So when I do use the board in the future, it's gonna be a positive one. So it's all about intention. Are you intending to have a good conversation? Yes, I'm intending to have a good conversation. And you gotta kind of decide, okay, you know what? I need to have some good energy. But I'm gonna say it's not all positivity. And also another thing is, I recommend, please, if you're not in a good state of mind, or you're not thinking clearly, or you're sick, maybe you got COVID, or a cold, or you're not getting enough sleep, that is probably not a good time to do that, because not so much because of vulnerability or that some evil demon is going to possess you, but it's more of just I've done Ouija sessions when I was tired, and or when I was a little bit sick, but I can tell you it's not so much for that reason. It's just because you want your mind to be clear, and you want to be able to process the information. And when you're sick, or you're depressed, or you haven't gotten sleep, you're not thinking clearly, and you may not be able to receive the information that's given to you. As I said, when you're moving a Ouija board, that's not a possession. That is an invocation. That means you are getting a consensual guidance from a spirit of your choice. And yes, there's always a exception somewhere, that some way you may have wanted to talk to one spirit, but you talked to another. Best thing is not to react, just to respond. If you see something that you don't like, that's being spelled out, ask questions, because it may not mean what you think it means. Also, take everything with a grain of salt. Not every spirit knows everything. Not every spirit wants to tell you everything. And not every spirit wants to tell you the truth. So, take it with a grain of salt. Not everything is written in stone. Okay? I would recommend avoiding to ask your future, because, first of all, do you think a spirit knows your future? Probably not. Probably not. They don't know your future. Heck, they probably don't even know you. They might not even know you. Now, if they watch you and they spend time with you enough, yeah, they might know some things about you, but don't be marveling and going, oh, how did they know that? It's easy. How do you think hackers know about you? It is, and it's even simpler for them to figure that out. Dates, times, that kind of thing, that's really easy for them. But I would recommend not asking for your future. Okay? Tarot cards and Ouija boards are not for the future. They are for reflecting on your life and communicating. Okay, a Ouija board is for communicating. And it can be used as a portal. Now, people that do not know the difference between the portal and the channel, the communication channel, should not be using Ouija boards. At that point, and if you're not feeling comfortable with yourself and spirits, yeah, probably not a good thing. You should probably try to, uh, you know, be around, maybe watch other people that have had experiences with it, or ask advice. Ask people to, I recommend, if you're looking for tutorials, Karen A. Dahlman, Dahlman. um, Karen, the first thing that I thought, she's a Karen, but there's been some Karens that I've liked. I haven't met any Karens like in real life, but Karen Gillan, Karen, uh, Plankton's wife, those are good Karens, but um, but the Karens, this Karen, first thing, she was just so bubbly and so happy and positive. At first, I just wanted to say, I'm sure you're just a really, the first thing, I was a little bit suspicious, because I was like, you're just too happy, and your name is Karen, and you're talking about chakras and being happy, and I just thought, oh, you're one of those. You're one of, are you, I was thinking, are you fake or something? But then the more I watched, the more I realized, no, she really was. She really just was a happy person, and she really was just, but she was serious when she needed to be, and she was just sitting there with her Ouija board and her cat, and she was just so casual about it, and she was just so chill and mellow, and she was communicating with extraterrestrials, and she was communicating with her angels, and she had some Christian roots, and it was really interesting. She was just, a very free spirit. And so I highly recommend Karen A. Dahlman. She has written a few books. She regularly uses Ouija boards. She's fantastic. I love her, and I love her energy, and I wish I could meet her, because that would be just wonderful, because she has been a great inspiration for me. She's one of my heroes. She's witchy. She's all into the chakras. You can tell that she's into yoga and Reiki and that kind of thing. So that's very and all of those things are very positives to me. So I believe that anything that helps elevate your mental, elevate your mental health, and gives you the boost that if it feels good to you and it works for you, then who is anybody to judge? So anyway, I hope all of you have a beautiful, blessed day. Thank you so much for joining, and I hope this was helpful for you.